Well, hello there, atheists.
Well, hello there, atheists. Well, hello there, atheists. Well, hello again there, atheists. Well, hello there, atheists. Well, hello there, atheists. Well, hello there, atheists.
Well, can I try? Well, hello there, religious people. I hope everyone had a great Christmas and a happy New Year. Sorry for the lack of content over the holidays, but my fiancée just left town for a week, so I wanted to spend as much time as I could with her. I do hope this video makes up for that lapse, and since the original video was a bit long, I did edit bits out. As always, I'll leave a link below in case you're interested in watching the entire video. Let's jump on in.
I wanted to do a video on the fact that atheism is unnatural.
I wouldn't call atheism unnatural. I mean, atheists do exist in nature. You might not like that we exist, but here we are, as natural as can be. But that's a minor point, really. Sorry to interrupt.
Atheism is utterly unnatural. Now, the atheists will argue that the only reason why we as Christians have a revulsion to atheism, or we have some sort of aversion to atheism, is because we were raised to hate atheists. And if only we were allowed to be a completely free-thinking society without any sort of coercion from society or from government, then we would all be atheists because atheism is natural. This is what they actually argue. I've heard several atheists actually say this.
Well, no. However, that could be the reason in some cases. I'm sure there are religious households, families, places of worship, etc. that do teach that atheists are evil, immoral, foolish people who need to be fought. In some countries, atheists can be murdered or outcast from society. That isn't always the case, though. We're a tribal species, and it makes sense that some percentage of religious people will want to castigate and maybe even do physical harm to the outgroup, in this case the atheist. And I don't know who you've been talking to, but I hope you know that neither I, or the people you have supposedly spoken to, speak for atheists. Atheists agree that there is no God or gods. That's it. The buck stops there.
That we are all born atheists, which doesn't make any sense because when you're a baby, you really have no awareness of much of anything.
This is the one point I kind of agree with Theodore on, and one of the main reasons I don't use this argument when engaging with theists. While a baby could be technically called an atheist, they don't yet have the ability to weigh the evidence for or against the various gods and come to a conclusion, or at least arrive at a conclusion that includes a relative amount of certainty when it comes to the question of whether or not a god or gods exist. I think it's a weak argument and not one that's likely to convince a religious person, even if that person happens to be doubting their belief in a deity.
But here's the question that I pose to all these people who say that atheism is natural and that religion, spirituality, Christianity is actually unnatural and unscientific. Why is it that when people accept atheism and believe in atheism wholeheartedly, and they become ardent followers of atheism, that they begin to believe and advocate for very unnatural things?
Because people can be shitty, including atheists. No surprise there. But I do want to point out that I don't follow atheism. Atheism is a conclusion I've reached, and it's subject to change. I don't believe in any god. There's nothing to follow there. There's no doctrine, no belief system, no specific political view associated with atheism. Now, I have heard some compelling arguments saying that atheism does in some way influence my worldview. For example, if you make an argument based purely on God said so, then I'm unlikely to agree with you. I'd obviously find your argument unconvincing, but that doesn't mean you couldn't advocate for the same position using reason, or even by appealing to my emotions, and still have me agree with whatever basic premise you were arguing for. But that's a whole other conversation, although an interesting one. At least, I find it interesting, but I've been informed that I'm a bit weird, so there's that.
So, for example, I've been studying Elon Musk in these last few days. Well, I've been reading about Elon Musk since last year, actually. Claims to be against eugenics, claims to be against the idea of transhumanism, but the reality is that he believes in eugenics and all that stuff. But, under the guise of being very polite and nice and all that nonsense. Well, he says that there is no God, right? That he does not believe in the existence of God. But he believes in very unnatural things, like artificial intelligence. The idea of creating consciousness.
I hate to break it to you, but artificial intelligence is already a thing. Personally, I find the whole idea of creating consciousness a very interesting one. Consciousness as a whole is so very interesting. Why did consciousness evolve? Why didn't we evolve with just the capacity to carry out essential tasks without self-awareness? Why aren't we just a planet populated with zombies rather than self-aware conscious beings? What evolutionary advantage does consciousness bring? These are all questions I think about a lot. And is consciousness an emergent property of matter? In other words, if we configure matter in such a way, can we produce consciousness? And if so, can we replicate that using non-biological material? I don't know. I'm not even sure it's a good idea to pursue the creation of artificial superintelligence. Because if it is possible, we may be creating the very thing that will lead to our extinction. I'm not talking about Terminator-style extermination either, but perhaps one that happens by mistake. A super-intelligent computer system likely wouldn't have the same concerns as we do, and it would be far, far superior in practically every conceivable way that matters. Anyhow, I'm getting off track here. I've wanted to make a video about artificial intelligence for some time, but this likely isn't the place for it. Carry on, Theodore.
Believes in evolution. And if you believe in evolution, then eventually you're going to believe in something like transhumanism. Because the whole idea, the whole concept of transhumanism is based on the idea that consciousness can be something that is something that can be created.
We don't know whether it can or cannot be created. Accepting the evidence for evolution, the mountains and mountains of evidence I might add, doesn't necessarily mean you'll accept that we can create consciousness. Floating the idea that it might be possible is not the same thing as believing it's possible or even likely. Again, I think there are some serious ethical questions that need to be tackled before we try to create an artificially intelligent, conscious being, and I also think we need to carefully consider the safety systems that would surround such an event before that event happens.
Because, well, if there is no God and everything is material and consciousness simply appeared, right, materially or randomly in nature.
Let me help you out. The word you're reaching for is evolved. It's not random.
And Elon Musk believes in colonizing space. Believes that, well, we can travel to Mars and go up there. And you have all these atheists, not just Elon Musk, but all these Silicon Valley freaks believe in unnatural things like this. They believe, well, we can evolve if we can travel to outer space because, well, again, one of the questions that atheism cannot answer is, if evolution is true, then why aren't we still evolving?
We are still evolving, but like so many of your religious brethren, you make the fatal mistake of believing that atheism answers any question. It answers one question. Do you believe in a God? If you answer no, then you're an atheist. Space travel, colonizing other planets, terraforming, etc. are outside of the realm of atheism. What I will say though is that if these things are possible and do become a reality, it will be scientific discovery that takes us there. Not religion, not belief in your outdated mythological beliefs.
And so there are people who will argue, well, we will evolve in space because space is a land that we cannot live in, but if we can somehow colonize it and make it so that we can live there and within some sort of capacity, I don't know what the hell they have in store in their crazy brains, then we can evolve because then eventually we would evolve to a state where we can live in outer space and then we would become something else.
Makes sense, since conditions on Mars would be wildly different than that found on Earth. For example, take this quote from an NBC article. But the call to put Homo sapiens permanently on Mars seems to sidestep a perverse irony. Experts say that a long period of isolation on the red planet, where gravity and sunlight are weaker than on Earth, and mutation-causing radiation more intense, could eventually cause the bodies of Mars colonists to change. And at least one expert believes the colonists could evolve into a new species. In other words, becoming a multi-planet species might lead us to become multiple species. This happens routinely to animals and plants isolated on islands. Think of Darwin's finches. Dr. Scott Solomon, an evolutionary biologist at Rice University in Houston, and the author of Future Humans, Inside the Science of Our Continuing Evolution, wrote recently on the science site Nautilus. But while speciation on islands can take thousands of years, the accelerated mutation rate on Mars and the stark contrast between conditions on Mars and Earth would likely speed up the process. In just a few hundred generations, perhaps as little as 6,000 years, a new type of human might emerge." End quote. However, in that same article, you can find quotes from biologists that say speciation would take much, much longer. That means that even though humans on Mars might look different than humans on Earth after only 6,000 years, it might take millions of years before humans on Mars could no longer breed with humans on Earth.
Again, people who reject the existence of God believe and do unnatural things. And why is it that those who say that atheism is true, or they reject Christianity, they accept homosexuality? Again, something utterly unnatural.
For something that is supposedly so unnatural, it sure seems to naturally occur in hundreds of animal species, including Homo sapiens. Wonder why a god would create such unnaturalness.
Look at people like Peter Thiel, homosexual, believes in all sorts of crazy things, believes that we can live forever, believes that we can live forever by injecting the blood of young people into our bodies. He actually does this. There's a term for it. I think it's something like priosis or something. I don't remember. It doesn't come into my recollection.
You mean Peter Thiel, the self-described Christian? That Peter Thiel? Surely you couldn't mean that guy, right? Here you almost have me convinced that only atheists believe in harmful and unnatural things. So disappointing.
And one thing I've known about atheists, one thing that I've noticed about atheists as well, is that they are extremely violent and aggressive people. And any time they take full power, they do genocide. And don't give me this bullshit about, well, Sweden is an atheist society. No, hold on. It's not an atheist regime. We're talking about atheist regimes. Think Plutarcho Elias Caius, Stalin, the Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot, all that stuff. Che Guevara. Anytime they impose an atheist regime, anti-Christian regime, they do genocide.
Point me towards a thriving theocracy. Anytime you create an atmosphere of intolerance and you try to violently impose your beliefs on others, you will have problems, whether you're trying to violently wipe out religion or whether you're trying to do the same to atheists. Hell, you could point to a number of religion-on-religion massacres as well. Even different sects of the same religion will try to kill each other by imposing their beliefs on the other groups. I don't know any atheist that would advocate for violence. I'm not saying there are none out there, but I believe in freedom of religion and freedom of speech. I'm not saying we should impose our atheism on anyone else. But I do think that speaking freely about religion, its impacts on society, and whether those beliefs are true is fair game. Just like any other idea. I don't think religion, and this goes for any religion, should be outside the realm of scrutiny. You're free to speak your mind, and I'm free to speak mine.
So atheism promotes unnatural things. It promotes genocidal and racist ideologies. It's sickening. It's completely sickening. And this is why I believe we should not tolerate atheism in society. We really cannot. I think it's absolutely diabolical.
You're not going to tolerate it, huh? What exactly do you intend to do about it?
Homosexuality is great. It should be tolerated. Bestiality is great. It should be tolerated. That's what you have in Germany. That's why in Germany they have places you can go to have sex with animals. Not even joking. They actually have this.
You mean majority Christian Germany, where more than 50% of the population is Christian? Tell me it ain't so, Theodore. Well, as far as I can tell, it isn't. Bestiality is illegal in Germany.
In atheism, in a place where there is no God, well, why is cannibalism wrong? And they'll argue and say, well, you're killing somebody. Well, I can use the argument of Peter Singer, one of your own atheists, who says, well, as long as you're not killing somebody, then you can eat the body. What is wrong with that?
You see, Theodore, I've read quite a bit of Peter Singer's work, and I've also watched a few interviews, and I don't think Peter has said any such thing. And unlike you, I'm not allergic to showing evidence when I make an assertion.
Peter, I want to come back to the question of food and vegetarianism and things. First, let's go to an extreme. I suppose it would follow from your logic that there should really be no objection to cannibalism, provided the human victim, I suppose, either has given his consent or has been accidentally killed, and maybe, what about eating roadkills?
Well, I mean, yes, if you're not responsible for the death and your practice of eating it is not going to encourage drivers to kill more animals, I don't think there's any problem with roadkill.
Human roadkills?
Well, I mean, then you get a question, I guess, of, well, what do the relatives think of it, and would the human have wanted this? You know, maybe most people would not like the idea that they would be eaten after they die, and we do try and respect people's wishes for after they die. We, you know, follow their wills and so on.
And so we should. I mean, that's...
You're welcome.
This is Theodore Shoebat. Hope you guys have enjoyed this message. Hope you guys have learned something from this message.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Thanks for watching. Take care and cheers.